Hi everyone, I'm Robbie Jenkins, and this is Breaking Boundaries, a place where we take posing beyond the stage. Hi everyone, I am Robbie Jenkins, and this is Breaking Boundaries, a place where we take posing beyond the stage. And today we have a special guest, my friend Sammy Williams.
Hey,
What's up?
how you doing? You good?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm good. Am I coming through okay?
What was that?
Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're good. Video's good, sound seems pretty good too.
Awesome.
So I guess to start, if you want to just give us a little bit of your background, what got you into bodybuilding, and more specifically, what got you into the posing aspect?
Oh, what got me into bodybuilding? So I've been bodybuilding now 22 years. I started when I was 17, and it all stemmed from I just started to work with a load of guys at a construction site and started to get a little bit fat because they was just eating like assholes all day. And I really felt like I need to start getting in shape because I was still young. You want to be attractive for the girls. So, and I had a really big fascination with Bruce Lee. I was really heavily into martial arts. Yeah, I used to do karate. I did Shotokan, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and I was also Thai boxing for 5 years as well.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I always enjoyed martial arts. And Bruce Lee, I'm actually born on the same day as Bruce Lee. So that's a pretty cool birthday to have. So yeah, I initially got into the gym just to really get fit, cardio. I was on the treadmill all the time, doing some weights, but just asking around, not really knowing what I was doing. And there was a guy in the corner of the gym, and he was I thought he was huge at the time because I was only 17, but he wasn't that big. But he was lifting some weight. He was benching like 320s each side. So I think what's that, 225 in America?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do it in kilos here. So I think it's like works out about 140, 140 on the bench. And yeah, and as a young guy, I was just like, whoa, I want to do that. That looks cool. So I no longer wanted to be lean and fast. I just wanted to be big as fuck. And there was this really old guy in the gym called Derek. He had a crazy stutter. He used to always, he'd say yeah when he responded to you, but he'd say yeah like 9 times. So it was like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But he was like one of those old guys that had just been around bodybuilding for years. And I don't know, you don't really get this in today's gyms. I'm going back now because I am almost 40. But back in the gyms in the day, when you would sign up a membership, there'd be like a little board on the side of the gym wall, and it'd have workout cards on it. So they'd be written out by PTs, all like fancy on a computer, and you'd take out your workout card for the day. All right, my first set is supposed to be a bench press, and then it'd work it down just for like new people going to the gym. So he initially grabbed this workout card off the wall, and he said, keep this one for yourself. He turned it over the other way, and he wrote out a bodybuilding plan from scratch on the blank side, and he gave it to me. And I literally followed this religiously for like a T for a long time. And then it just progressed. I mean, there's an old saying: you get bitten by the bug of bodybuilding, and it literally never left me since then. I don't think from the age of 17 I've had 1 week go past where I haven't at least stepped into a gym once. I've just been religious with it, you know. So yeah, that's how bodybuilding came about. And I trained like a bodybuilder. I always wanted to look like a bodybuilder, and I always followed bodybuilding because from that moment on, he let me pumping iron at the same time. Obviously, everyone watches pumping iron when they first start working out, and that actually introduced my love of posing. So watching pumping iron, my original posing inspiration was, of course, the late great Ed Colney, the OG of proper posing, in my opinion. And it was fascinating because I watched Arnold and all of the rest of the guys, and as much as I was blown away by their physiques, I always used to go to the sections in the pumping iron video of Ed Colney posing, and I would try and mimic his style, you know, his really dramatic style. He used to do these big hand movements as he was coming up to pose, and I just fell in love with the artistry of it. I've got like quite an arty background anyway. Like growing up, I was drawing and painting from the age of 6. I've actually got an art and animation diploma that I've done at Bedford University. So I was always interested in the human figure, and I'd always draw characters with muscles on. It's just typical like young guy stuff, you know. You grow up reading comic books of your favorite muscular characters and stuff. So I think it all just blended into one. And then when I see muscular guys posing, I've got the art of expression mixed with the bodybuilding passion that I've now been doing for quite some time. And I was the only guy I remember out of all my friends that would literally be posing between sets. Because I've watched Pumping Iron, and that's all they do. You do a set and then you know? So my friends would get so pissed in the gym. They'd be like, I had quite a bit of confidence at the time as well. Also, not that much foresight, because you don't understand. I'm literally now telling them, because at the time of this, Jay and Ronnie were battling at the Olympia. So I would wait for the covers of the Flex magazine to come out so I could see who won the Olympia. Every time Ronnie won, I was pissed off because I was a Jay fan.
Okay.
So, but weirdly, I still thought Dexter had the better physique of both out of all of them. I was always secretly rooting for Dexter Jackson to win, you know, because in my eyes, he had the better physique out of Jay and Ronnie. But I don't know. I think it's like Superman. You just want to see him get punched in the mouth. It's the same thing with Ronnie Coleman. Keep seeing him win just annoyed me. But anyway, so I would literally just be getting the covers of magazines and that. So then, you know, I'm studying everything that they're doing then. I think half of it was bullshit anyway. They just wrote it in the magazines for you to keep buying them. But I'm like, oh, they're eating this. They're taking this supplement. Oh, this is what they're doing. But now we all know what they were doing. But yeah, and it just kind of all blended together, you know. So fast forward, maybe I've now been doing this for a real long time, maybe 10 to 12 years, maybe 15 years. And that's when I met John. And at the time, I'd sort of given up on bodybuilding as a term of actually competing, because in my eyes it was a young man's game, and I'm starting to get to 30 now. It was so hard to compete back when I was younger. There were guys that obviously did it, but it wasn't like today where it's all advertised on Instagram. You can just jump into a show and stuff like that. it was really hard to actually like find out where the next show is, get yourself there. There was no coaches to prep anyone, so you was listening to the guy in the gym or like just doing it yourself. It was really hard to sort of get into. And fast forward that Instagram's now a thing, and I meet John, and we're both personal training behind the counter of the gym that we were working at. And one day he was actually being coached at the time by Luke Sando. Rest in peace, brother. Um, I used to see Luke every day, one of the coolest guys ever. So it was good because we had Carly Thornton in the gym at the time that was with Luke. And then you had at the same time Ben Chow. He was with a girl called Christina, who was like incredible athlete as well. And then John as well. Like so, we had quite a mix of athletes in that gym that went on to do pretty impressive stuff. And Luke was training John, but Luke wasn't the biggest on posing himself. And I was like, I just had all of these years of like doing this stuff, you know, like by myself and just and free flowing and learning poses, watching people. I would study hours of footage of posing like it was a football game, you
Yep.
know. I would literally study hours and hours and hours of it, how to flex, how to switch on, like the footwork to achieve a certain transition and everything, their hand movements to work in synergy with the legs. So I said to John, I'll help you with your posing. And he was like young, fresh, looked incredible as well. I knew he was going to go far straight away. And he was like, yeah, all right. So I was helping him with his posing while Luke was doing his diet and stuff for his first competition. And then it worked out really well. Like John looked great. His posing was like a better standard than what actually, because the UK standard of posing was terrible at the time. Um, and yeah, he looked even better than they did. And that was, and I thought to myself, that was just me and him working on that. Like we've obviously got something, you know. So fast
Mm-hmm.
forward a few years, there was no such thing as posing coaches in the UK. There was none. No one was doing posing coaching. So John started doing a bit because obviously now he had started regularly competing. I was still just the training buddy, and he'd started regularly competing. So he started taking it upon himself. I'm going to teach some people how to pose because I'm sick of seeing people that can't pose. It's annoying me, and we'd talk about it constantly. We go to amateur shows. You'd watch these guys like train hard, bring awesome physiques, and then you're in the crowd and you're almost cringing. You're like, it looks awful, but you look good. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? You know. Um, and we just realised there was no one teaching it. So both of us clubbed together. We started putting out posing seminars in the UK, doing one-to-ones ourselves and stuff like that, just because we wanted to be able to sit in an audience, watch a bodybuilding show, and actually see some decent posing. So it came from love. You know, it obviously turned into a business afterwards because you can't devote that much time to something without actually like it providing you with a source of income. But it came from love. We always did this for a passion, and just to be able to sort of better the posing game in the UK. And then yeah, here we are. Fast forward, he'd finally convinced me that you're not too old to step on a stage. I'm going to prep you, get on the stage, and yeah, and it's just been a journey ever since. Really, like posing's been incredible. I've achieved some things that if you told me when I was a young man, like that I would have got to do, and they might not be anything big to certain people, but it was like little things to me, like to be able to guest pose on an NPC stage. Never in a million years would have thought I'd have ever done that ever. You know, competing abroad, like yeah, it was just yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's been great, and becoming quite a name in the posing industry as a posing coach has just been an absolute blessing. The fact that people continue to come to me and put their trust in me, and I still enjoy it to this day. I had like a young 17-year-old lad jumping on the Zoom call yesterday, never posed before, and I loved it. love working with him because it's good to see that fire. So yeah, that's basically it really. That's sort of like a very sort of brushed over like journey of how I got here, really, I suppose.
Yeah, I love that too. I feel like the more that I talk to different people and the more people that I meet or work with, I always end up finding this correlation to like, and I can be wrong. So like, this is just my opinion. Like, I will own that this is just my opinion. This is like not fact. But I feel like there is definitely a difference between being like a bodybuilder in the sense of an athlete and then being a bodybuilder in like the sense of an artist.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I feel
100%.
like they start on the same path, but they just become very, very, very different. Like I feel like bodybuilding can stay at a very superficial level, but I feel like the people that end up tapping into that artistic side of it, I feel like they not only become better bodybuilders, like well-rounded,
Yeah.
um, but I feel like their journey just ends up going so much deeper. And then I feel like there has always been like an inner artist with those people. Like
Oh yeah.
somewhere along the line, like something got tapped. And then even if it was untouched for a while and you like forget about it, like it just kind of pulls you back into it.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Like most of the people that I talk to that are good, they're it's the same thing. You know, like I look back at my life and all of the different things that I did, like the multiple martial arts that I've done, um, the fact that I used to play drums, guitar, and I sung in a band. Um, you know, art and animation diploma that I got at university since I've drawing all this time, and then my absolute passion for expression and bodybuilding and posing, clubbing together. You know, that gave me creativity. It gave me timing. It gave me like nuanced footwork. It's kind of like a perfect blend of how it all came together. And I do think it makes me a better teacher as well because it enables me, especially when I'm running through posing routines, to be able to really break it down to the core to people and explain it to them. But yeah, most people that I talk to that are on of the sort of like creative level of the posing and that there's usually like some kind of crazy creative person within that. And I just speaking from experience, I tend to agree with you that they're the ones that get the most out of bodybuilding internally.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bodybuilders that just bodybuild to get big and that's all they care about, getting big, getting shredded, winning trophies, it's all they're focused on. Those people tend to look at the disappointments before they look at the journey and the gratification for actually being privileged enough to do what we do, you know.
Yeah. And I feel like I feel like that's kind of part of it. I know for me, when I started, it was very much that way. Like
Mm.
I was always a little bit competitive, but I never did athletics when I was growing up. I had a more artistic side. I was in band. I played piano, played, played flute. Like never ending jokes there. But then, yeah. But then I
Not
also
saying
like
nothing.
I used to, man, I would get the band camp jokes, like American Pie jokes all the
This one
time.
time at band camp.
Yeah. Like I almost just leave musical instruments at piano just so because I know it's coming. As soon as I say, like as soon as
Yeah.
I say it, I know that it's coming. But no, I used to do that. And then there were things that I would forget about. Like there was a lot of stuff even up till this last couple years that I forgot. Like when I was a kid, um, I was always obsessed with dance, but I was so and like timid and not confident in putting myself out there that I didn't like. My grandma even offered to put me into dance lessons, and I was like, no, like I'm not interested. In reality, I really wanted to. Like, if you would ask my best friend growing up, like every dance video, Dirty Dancing, Save the Last Dance, um, any of like the Step Up movies, Honey or whatever. Like I used to watch them all the time. And then if you put a little secret camera in my room, you would see me trying to like pick up the choreography or like learn stuff.
Yeah.
Like little stuff like that. I always loved but was like too scared to do. And I'd completely forgotten about it um, until I started posing. And then as like I got better at certain aspects of posing, and I realized like, oh, this has kind of become my own little way to dance. Because even when I started posing, I was still too embarrassed to go to classes. Like now I'm starting to, but for a while I still was. And then you had like the background in music, so you understand musicality and timing and tempo. So like that stuff kind of set me up. Um, but it wasn't until I went into women's physique and got to like step into the posing side of it to where I got to it was basically like reawakening a part of myself that I had pretty much all but let die for a
I know.
while.
I actually know that. What
Um,
you?
yeah,
I feel you on that.
yeah. And so that was part of the reason why I wanted to do this is because I feel like not only is it a shame to see competitors in like the bodybuilding world get on stage and not be able to present their physiques, but if you can learn and tap into that expressive side of yourself too, I feel like one, it adds another element to your posing that it makes it yours no matter what you do, no matter who your influence is. Like I caught flack when I started of looking like certain people. Um,
Oh, you
and like,
always get people always
yeah,
talk shit.
yeah. But then now it's like you learn over time that everybody has like their influences and their inspirations and stuff. And then when you're learning, like that's just part of it. But eventually you tap into this, it's like you almost tap into this side of yourself that either you forgot existed or you just never let yourself tap into. And then something else just completely comes out of it.
Yeah,
So
something
then,
from like your past that you was like found a lot of creativity and will come out through your posing. Like me with my
Mhm.
martial arts, it happens a lot.
Yeah. So people, I've been asked before if I ever thought, like there was a little while I was taking jujitsu and then I quit because my coach was like, how many people do you know that are in multiple sports and actually really good at one of them? And I was like, mm. And then he was like, also, if you get hurt, he's like, we don't need any extra setbacks. So I'm like, like, all right. Um,
It's right. It's right. It reminds me of a Will Smith saying that really resonated with me, and it stuck with me for a long time. And Will Smith always said, like, you just got to wake up one day and find one thing, and that one thing, you've got to give it everything to that one thing. Because if you don't give it to that one thing will never ever be as good as it ever could be. You know?
mm,
So it's hard though when you're creative like we are, because I don't know about you, like in a prep, when I just have to just be Mr. Bodybuilder, I miss doing all my other things, you know. I miss playing my guitar and I miss, like being artistic and doing other things. But yeah, you just have to be Mr. Bodybuilder during a prep phase, and it becomes a bit robotic.
it does. I think where mine was different is because this past year, I did I think 3 or 4 cinematic videos. Um, and I did a lot of them toward the end of my prep, like the last third of it. So I didn't really get bored because even though it wasn't like my routine on stage, I was making so many other routines to meet up with one of my friends who was a videographer in Raleigh, and we would make art stuff. So I got to like scratch that itch the
Yeah,
entire time.
I kind of had that as well, because obviously doing so many posing routines for clients, even
Hmm.
during my prep. But it's a struggle when you're on fuck all carbs.
Yeah.
Start trying to plan posing routines and work stuff out. Sometimes I would walk into the gym and I'd set the music up, put it on, and then I'd free flow a couple of times. I'd be like, this just ain't working today. I'll do this tomorrow. And yeah, people might get their posing routines a day late, but they'd at least be a lot better.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing that I've had to deal with. Like, I guess trying to own like the artistic role is, I read this book, The War of Art, and it will talk, like, there's a line in there where it talks about like, you don't like own like your art, like your art owns you.
Yeah.
And it's so true, because I'll go through phases where I literally can be brushing my teeth and listening to a song and pop out a posing routine just
Mhm.
like that. And then I can go through like 2 to 3 months and I'm like,
Blank.
did I just forget? Did I just forget how to pose? Like, do I not know?
Yeah.
Do I not know how to do this anymore? Like, what?
Am I actually that good? Yeah.
Um, but I do want to dig into the creative stuff. So we talked about a couple of routines that I'm going to pop up on here.
Okay.
I'm going to hide this, and then I'll show a couple that we talked about, and then we'll go into like a little bit of detail of kind of the inspiration behind them, and it's just some more like individual personality and things that you put into your routines. It's like very much just you. So
Awesome. Sounds good. It's always fun to look back. I don't know if you're one of these people that likes looking back at your old work. I
yeah.
definitely do. I look at it like a scrapbook, you know, and I look at it fondly. So
All right. So here is the first one that we talked about.
you like this one?
I do. I really do.
Sammy Williams. Boss.
Learn to be ashamed of what stars run away. You say you wanna love you as you are, but I won't let them break you down. 'Cause I know that there's a place for us. When we are glorious. And the sharpest words wanna cut me down. I'm gonna send the blood for the drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I come. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me.
I love that one.
It's good, right?
Yeah. So I remember the first time, I think the first time that I saw it, and did you post, was it just this one, or did you post like another snippet of this that somebody had recorded?
Yeah, I think on my story, I didn't post it on my story. I showed another angle of it. So there's another angle of it. I've also posted snippets of it as well, because there's a couple of transitions and transitions from pose to pose that I personally haven't seen anyone else actually do yet, and I'm quite proud
Yeah.
of, especially in the stage setting. You know, when I do the coming up and then the spin into the reverse 3/4.
Uh-huh.
I've still not seen anyone else do that, and there's an actual funny story behind that. Is I couldn't work out. I really wanted to hit those poses in succession, and that took me about a good week to just think about it. And I said, do you know what? I'm just going to spin into it. And I was thinking to myself, this could go really badly wrong if I fuck it up on stage. But you only get good by putting that pressure on yourself. So I did it, and I was really proud how the whole thing came out.
Yeah, there was a couple parts. So I love the fact that it starts out just like so soft and so gentle. But the cool thing is it's like not not just your movements of your body changes when that music picks up, like you actually watch yourself kind of light up into it too. So it's not
Yeah,
even like the movements just pick up. It's just like you start out with like this like soft kind of like sullen start, and then you're just like you're owning it the whole entire time.
The
Um,
Greatest Showman, right?
yeah, yeah.
That is what I
And
was going
so
for with it. That is what I was going for with it. I thought it'd be really because when the song choice was put to me, I was really thinking like, oh, if I actually did that, that's quite cool because it's the Greatest Showman. So if I've you can't do the Greatest Showman and not put on a damn good show. So
yeah.
yeah, it. The funny thing is I competed twice that year and I got the Best Poser award. I was the only one to have been given it that year, and they gave it to me for the routine after that, which was nowhere near as good as that one. I think they just felt we liked that last one, but we forgot to give it to him, so I'll give it to him at the next one. Because I was really like, what, you're going to give it to me for this one, but you didn't give it to me for the last one. It was way better. So, yeah, I think I was really proud of that routine up until I'd say this year doing the guest pose. That was probably my best routine until this year. Well, last year just gone. That was probably my best posing routine up until that point, and I feel like I kind of topped it with the guest pose. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's some nice little. So I started off like obviously everyone knows me and John sort of coined the Michelangelo pose.
Uh-huh.
John calls it the Michelangelo. We both came up with that sitting down one day. I've always been a fan of like Italian architecture and Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could actually create a pose around an old sculpture? And in my dad's house, he's got the Michelangelo's David sculpture standing up. And I was looking at it, and it's a very basic, just standing, but he's holding the sling that he, as David and Goliath, he's holding the sling over his shoulder from what he's hit Goliath in the head with. And I thought, well, all you've got to do is just look into the hand rather than holding a sling. It's pretty much the same pose. So there was a period of time where we would both pretty much use that pose in each of our posing routines, and it becomes synonymous with us. I feel like it's become more of John's thing now because he's got like a lot of really famous shots of it. But I walked out initially and I wanted to start with that as like this is the start piece, and I built like I wanted to go to ground and do all of the nice slow stuff, and then I wanted to sort of like have a big drop. So there's also a scene in there as well where just after I rise up, hit the slow turn and the side tricep, point where I sort of slowly rise up after the slow stuff. And the first stuff, if you have a look, I really wanted to sort of like mirror the Bob Paris stuff. There was a lot of like Bob Paris. Stick certain poses in there that you don't often see, like the one on the back, the arm,
Uh-huh.
like abs shot on the floor, and then like
Yeah.
the slow rise up, the slow turn, side tricep, which I think is probably one of my best looking shots on my physique. And then if you have a look, I actually jump into the twisting 3/4 on the ground. So it's not like it's not a clean drop into it. Doggo wants to get involved.
I'm trying to see if
There was a lot of risk taking in this one, in terms of like what where you're. So I felt big as fuck on this one as well because my friend rubbed hot stuff all over my body for like glaze.
so here's
And
the
this
this is
is the
one of the
tool. Yeah. So this is one of the Bob Paris poses that I wanted to add in that you don't often see. It went quite nicely with the musicality. I don't know if you're like this as well, but I like to obviously do certain poses that will mirror the lyric of the song.
Yeah.
So and this is like I think like hide away from the broken parts, and it's almost like I'm looking off to the side, like I'm hiding away. So yeah, and then the reaching out, it's almost like pulling into those poses. So I use a lot of momentum to sort of gauge my next movement, almost like gripping imaginary things. So I love this shot. I've got a really clean shot of this, but watch after this, I actually jump into it.
Yeah, it's like a little jump slide.
Yeah, which, and then a jump up rotation as well. There's a lot of ballsy moves in this bit because I really wanted to make an impact. Boom, there.
Yeah.
And I love that this is me, and I'll with the both hands up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you like wrestling. I was a really big WWF fan when it was WWF. It's WWE now. But I always remember an interview with Mick Foley, the guy that played like Mankind and Cactus Jack, because I was a big fan of. Again, it's entertainment. It's expressive entertainment. It's pretty much what wrestling is as well. And he always said, you haven't got to have the best match, but if you can do one thing that makes the crowd sit back and go, oh shit, they'll remember it above everything else. So I always try and have one oh shit moment in all of my posing to leave a memory, And I think you can only do that if you're tactical about the move that you do and the point of music that you do it to.
Yeah.
Like that bit there, there's a, and then it goes, and I'm jumping into it, and it's like, whoa, and then I come up, spin up, and then hit the other two spins. This is me, bang. That one sequence there was what really sort of, I was planning to just leave an imprint on people's minds when I was doing that. I wanted them to walk away and go, that was pretty insane. What did we just watch? Which is hard to do in posing, and that's the other thing. When you see so many different posing routines and people posing on Instagram, like it's almost become a thing now. I almost feel like now there's a lot of people that do it for the views and for the likes, and their heart and soul ain't really in it. Because, and it does, it's sad to see because it's become another thing now. People see something that gets a little bit of attention and then they think, oh, I'll just do that, which is sad. But the real ones know. But yeah, it's I always just wanted to do something daring and ballsy and different, so that when I walk off stage, people are like, oh, I've never seen that before. That was great.
Yeah.
But still keeping it confined into the essence of what bodybuilding is without deviating too much. Because you also do run the risk of that with being creative. You can run the risk, I feel, of almost going a bit too crazy and out there and making some shit up. And then it's too far away from bodybuilding. Does that make sense? Like I've seen that a lot as well. There's these guys now on Instagram that are putting up, they're trying to copy every single anime pose and things like that. Like, yeah, this is the flying dragon, and it's like, stop it. just stop it. Just stop it.
Which I have to say, like, I've never understood anime. So, like, I don't understand.
Oh, I love anime.
And, like, I'll never, I won't say never, but, like, it is hard for me to understand. Ooh, peach fuzz?
Peachy Keen.
Yeah.
What a weird name.
It's a good flavor. I like it. But no, I for the life of me cannot understand the obsession between.
I get it because I'm a dude that grew up loving anime and Dragon Ball Z. I actually watched it when it very first came out, not all the reruns on Instagram that people are looking at now. Because I was old enough to come home from school and watch Dragon Ball. Yeah. I think it's just the training aspect. A lot of these anime, they have really good storytelling. They have really good, characters that are built over time, and they start off as a weakling, and then their perseverance and determination, and they grow stronger, and the music's great. And there's a lot of things, if you're interested in anime, that can shift off into bodybuilding. However, again, I feel like it's just become another one of those things now that because it's cool, you've even got people that don't even really like anime that they're now just jumping into it because it's a thing. I feel like that's just a thing now. Social media, just people look at, oh, what's trending, what's hot, and then they just try and emulate it. Unfortunately, I do get it though. I do get it, but this is where me personally, if I'm going to reference something like that within bodybuilding, I'll try and keep it within bodybuilding. I'm not going to do a pose that's like a Kamehameha pose or something like that. I'm not going to do that because it's not a bodybuilding pose, and it doesn't even look like a bodybuilding pose. It looks great if you're shooting a fireball, but you're not.
It's or put it somewhere instead of it being like a pose, mimic it. That's something that I'll do sometimes too. Like if I'm thinking of doing something, but it's not necessarily like a good pose spot, I might use it as like a transition, like a quick transition kind of deal, and then go into a pose.
Yeah, you could do it like I've actually done that where I've been on the ground and I'll reach out and pull myself forwards. So you can use it for things like that, and it works quite well. But I feel like when you're trying to get too creative, and this is the problem with these guys that are literally they're trying to top the last thing they did, and it just gets more out of control. Where does it stop? You've now got nowhere to go, and it's no longer bodybuilding anymore. You're not hitting any conventional bodybuilding poses. You're not really even showcasing your physique. You're just trying to be different for the sake of being different and just trying to keep this one-upmanship going on and on and on. And the creativity ends up becoming just a victim of its own success.
Yeah, I can see that. It is hard because it's a fine line.
Yeah, there is.
There is a very, very fine line. And then trying to stay on like the right side of that can be a bit difficult. I think that's some people will reference some of the stuff I do as like a lot of people thought I had a contemporary dance background. No, just YouTube. Like there's some movements.
Just because you don't have a contemporary dance background doesn't mean that you might not have been a great contemporary dancer if you had actually got into it. And this is what I feel like a lot of guys that just like, there can be some people that go into posing with tools already in their arsenal that help them get through. There can also be people like yourself that may have found a style and then you're likened to contemporary dancing. Well, maybe you would have been an amazing contemporary dancer, but you just didn't know because you never tried it back in the day. But bodybuilding and expressing yourself in that direction has been able to allow you to just let your body move, maybe subconsciously taking in certain movements that you might have seen from contemporary dance, and it just naturally flows into your posing, and then that becomes your style. And
I think that's part of what I was like alluding to was being grateful for it, because I think because my foundation started in posing, it's easier for me to bridge other things into posing instead of bridging posing into other stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
So, like, I understand, like, I understand posing. So even when I went and worked with Kai and we did like a 3-person thing, like there was some interpretive stuff we wanted in there. There was like some cool stuff we wanted in there. There was stuff that we wanted in there that was like what you would normally see in like a double or trio like routine. And then we wanted something that was just like out there. Like at the end, there was like this gunshot, and it basically was like representing Kai being kind of like the creative mastermind. He was
Yeah,
the one that's kind of like shooting Jacob and I. Like he's
almost like
basically
a
like
puppet,
he's
like a puppet
yeah,
master.
he's like killing the puppet strings basically, like through the gunshot. Like that's what I'll do a video on here one day where I'll break down kind of like what we did and like what my thought process was like on the story behind it. But
I'm
he
not
like
jealous about that at all, by the way. Not jealous
it
at
was
all. I bet
yeah,
that was cool as shit.
it was a wild experience. What made it more wild was I just can't explain how it happened. It like I don't have a huge following, so the fact that I popped up on his feed somehow, I still to this day don't know how it happened. Um, I think one of the things I might have tagged him in, but I think the other thing he commented on, he didn't. And
Yeah,
then
but I'm
I
sure
just
loads of people tag him in stuff. He probably just realised that you had a really good raw talent. Because when you know yourself, when you see someone that's good, you immediately know if you're good. If you're
yeah,
good, you can see other people that are good, and you're like, oh, they're good. You know, I had the
yeah,
same thing with Ryan Brambleby. You know, here in the UK, not a lot of people really knew Ryan Brambleby for how good he was at posing, like they do now. But me and John saw him compete, and we were both like, "That guy's got it." We see him coming a long time before, you know, and he's
yeah.
fantastic. And since then, he's become one of my best friends, and we like do seminars together and all kinds of stuff. So he's great. He's great. But yeah, that thing with Kai. Do you not think Kai is like the biggest guy you've ever seen like in real life?
Oh, he's massive. I remember we so misunderstood the assignment. He took us to RedCon because I remember Jacob, my friend Jacob, and I made jokes about this when I started posing. Because I think when I went and posed with him, you want to talk about some like mega imposter syndrome because we were gonna do like 3 different routines. We shot 2. The second one never came out. We actually did like a Mortal Kombat style thing, which was kind of cool. It was like a green screen studio
That's
setup.
bad.
It came out neat. Unfortunately, the world is never gonna see it, which stinks. But
Always happens to the best stuff.
yeah, I was so bummed. But like I'm kind of glad at the same time. Like I still have stuff on it, like on my phone, but I can't put it out anywhere. Um, but no, I remember like Jacob and I had just made jokes about it. I think this was like the 3rd month. Maybe I was posing. I used to get so mad because I couldn't put a 1-minute routine together, not realizing that that's actually a normal timeline. Like it even takes some of the pros, like sometimes days, sometimes weeks, depending on the song and how much they're feeling it.
Yeah,
So
especially nowadays pros. I feel like the guys in the 90s and the 80s were like insane.
yeah.
But I feel like
So
today's pros now they'll need like a little bit of a, you know.
but yeah, it's like I never had any reference or like understanding, and I hadn't been around a lot of people with posing, so I didn't realize that only having done it for 3 months and then putting like a 1-minute routine together with stuff in, like that was actually kind of a big deal. Like even if it wasn't the cleanest thing in the world. Um, but I remember we had made jokes about it, and so then when it came down to it and it happened, I made sure to pull like I had something to where I could pull Jacob into it because even though it was a joke, it was like he was my friend. He helped me like keep going when I was really starting to get some crap just starting out and didn't want to do it because I didn't really feel like it was worth it. Um, but yeah, we went to train with Kai at RedCon, and he came in and his glutes are like
Ridiculous.
I feel like you take my butt and it is the same circumference as like one of his hamstrings.
Yeah. He
And I don't
I
have a small butt.
I still tell people to this day, because I've met all or a hell of a lot of the big bodybuilders, the big pros. I've met Cedric McMillan went before he passed away. I've met Victor Martinez, Phil Heath, Big Ramy, Ronnie Coleman. I've like Samson now, number 3 in the world. He trains at my gym in the UK. I've met a lot of big bodybuilders. Luke Sando, I used to see Luke Sando all the time. Nobody has ever blown me away physically like Kai did. He had so much muscle on one frame. I feel like Phil Heath said it. Phil Heath said he's on a podcast with Chris Williamson. He said Kai is like the densest guy you've ever seen. He's like, he actually said, I think you could put Kai next to Ronnie Coleman back in the day and you'd be surprised. For pure dense muscle, he's probably the same or not far off.
Yeah.
People don't realise how big and thick and dense Kai actually is. The guy is phenomenal. And he can move with it as well. His flexibility and his dexterity with that much size.
Yeah. They had I had went to the bathroom and like came back. There was this other gym studio that we would go to. And so I went to the bathroom and I came back in. And when I came back in, I shit you not, Kai was in a headstand doing his like little like flowy leg move upside down, getting ready to go into another pose. And I remember walking in and I saw him doing something and Jacob doing something. Like they had some like bromance song on. And I was like, I don't know what I just walked into, but I need to walk back out and try this again.
But yeah, it's crazy, right? I bet that was something pretty special to watch that guy move in real life. Because it was impressive enough for me just to shake his hand and watch him walk past me. I've never seen a man bust out of leggings that hard in my life. They look like they were sprayed onto him.
Yeah, he and that was like a big thing for me too. Because again, I'd never been around somebody when they were like amateur, new pro, let alone someone like Kai who's been doing it forever and is known for like his artistry. I'd never seen anybody else or what their process looked like when it come to posing or putting a routine together. But I remember sitting there and it was really cool because I'm watching what he's doing and I'm like, holy crap, like this is what I do. Like
So, I'm interested what you said there. What is his process then?
He
Roughly.
literally just like he'll listen to the song. He had me play it for him like 3 or 4 or 5 times. And literally before he started moving was just kind of like listening to it, getting an idea of like what the song was, what the lyrics were, like the message and whatnot. And then he just started moving to it. And he would try something and then he was like, and then he would stop and then he would try something else. He'd get to where like he liked how something moved or how something looked. And so he would keep it. And then it was like he would get stuck at another point and be like, and then he'd be like, play it again. And so then he would start at the beginning. Like, it was funny. It was just like watching him do it and then realizing like, oh, that's like, it's not that much different. Like, no matter how long you've been doing it, like, it looks like the process is kind of the same. Yeah.
Yes, it sounds kind of similar to my process, really. But I'll already envision in my head that there's a couple of poses that I want to hit at certain spots, you know. Because I might like listen to a song and I'll hear the lyrics and I'll be like, oh, that'd be great if I hit this pose in there, you know. So I'll save that pose for there. But then I might be freestyling and then I'll get to that point and I'm not in a position where I can hit that pose. So then I've got to reverse it, go through and find a cleaner way to get there. So yeah, but that's generally what I'll do. I'll pick you know, if I'm doing it for myself, I already have my shots because I do feel like if you're seasoned at it, you know what looks best on your physique. So you have your go-to shots. If I'm doing it for a posing client, I'll be looking at their physique. So I might, you know, have to get out of my comfort zone and hit shots that I know will look great on them, but might not necessarily look good on me. But then, yeah, so. But that's pretty much my process. It's just picking a select few poses that I'm definitely going to have in there, and having them work around those big moments within a song. And I'm very critical of the song when guys come to me with a posing track. I will straight up tell them if I think it's an absolute flat, dead flop. Because you get, you just said it yourself, you get 60 seconds on a stage. If you don't make them 60 seconds count, you can end up just putting people to sleep.
Yep. It's like,
yeah, it's just not worth it, Pick a better song.
yeah, I don't think people, I think what hurts people the most is like they just pick a song that they like. They don't necessarily pick a song that means something to them. And that kind of makes all the difference too. Like if it stirs up some sort of memory, or like good, bad, or indifferent, but if it stirs up something, like that is a better place to start than a song that you just like it because you just like it, and like there's no other.
Yeah, the first
Because I feel like
routine I ever done was it was for my grandmother that had passed away, and I got off stage. It was a lot actually going into that. So my first ever posing routine was at the point where obviously I'd come into it late in the game, but I'd been teaching people how to pose for quite a while because of the connection with John, and John would heavily push me to people and say, like, you don't understand, like Sammy really gets it. So, but I had critics, some people talking shit, saying, how can he teach people to pose? He's never even been on stage before. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And then this was my opportunity. I said, right, well, okay, I'm actually competing now. But it was kind of weird. I had this added pressure because now I've actually, whereas most people just go into their first show, they just go into their first show and they're like, here I am, just here, seeing how it goes. First run, no pressure. Mine was different because I actually had to then show people, like, this is why people come to me for posing.
Yeah.
So almost like, shut the fuck up. But at the same time, I done it for my nan. It was a little tribute to her. And everyone said it was the best posing routine on the day. I tend to agree. But after that, I stopped getting the criticism. It was literally after my first ever posing. The first time people saw me pose on stage, where obviously I was against novice and first timers, so they pose like first timers, to be expected. And then I come out and do that. It was pretty like, oh, okay. I almost looked too advanced for the first timer division in terms of the posing aspects and that, and in somewhat the muscularity as well, because I was the biggest dude on stage as well. But it was a nice way to sort of like, prove, because you do get it. I'm sure you've got it when you started out. People can be cruel. Lots of people have things to say, but if you're confident in your passion and your knowledge of your chosen craft and you work hard at it enough, then you can go out and validate yourself.
Yeah, I completely get that. I feel like I'm in a weird spot because it's like I think I put more unnecessary pressure on myself than what I need to sometimes.
It's normal.
Yeah, like I know how to pose and I know how to teach it and I like teaching. But even now, sometimes, like, just because I didn't get to like a certain point in my show season or hit like the IFPB pro status or whatnot, like there's still even times where, I mean, even with starting this podcast, it's like, who's going to want to listen? But if I look back, like, yeah, but if I like look back at either like both of my posing, like when it was, I remember the first time posing for Women's Physique was this year. Like other than that, anything I ever did posing wise was basically in my apartment that you guys would see on Instagram. like that was my
still
step.
good though. It's still good.
Yeah, but somebody went up to my coach. He was at my show in Charlotte, and I guess that guy had asked him a couple times because he'd see my stuff on Instagram or see my coach. Like, what is she doing? And he was like, she's like, she just loves it. Like, she loves posing. He's like, but I don't understand. Like, what? I was like, I get it. Like, you don't have to understand it, but like, she's just creative. Like, she's just an artist. And at some point, she's going to need to use this. So, like, she loves it. So she's doing it. I guess that guy saw me pose on stage at Charlotte, and he went up to my coach and was like, I get it. And he was like, I have never seen or like experienced what I just experienced watching what she just did on there. And then when I went to the amateur like that was like the routine I was really saving.
It was awesome. I saw it.
I loved it.
And you should definitely play on it.
Yeah, it was my favorite because it was literally like my journey back to the stage. Like I'd left off in figure, and it was like me kind of finding my way through it. And so like when it opens up, it was an audio that I clipped from my first phone call with Kai, and where he says like, you are an artist. And that was the first time I'd ever heard somebody use those words to me, was like that phone call. And like, that was kind of what started the trajectory of everything.
I never knew that was from an actual phone call.
Yeah, that was from an actual phone call that I had with Kai. There was a video one of my friends took when I was on the phone with him when he called for the first time. We had like a 30-minute conversation, and that was like from that conversation.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So when it opens up with that, it's like, you are an artist. So in that song, you know, she's talking about, what are the lyrics? It's like, secrets tell a million lies to build the walls you hide behind, but when the truth it comes to light, like you will find, like you'll be free. And so as she's like building up the lyrics to that, it was kind of me hearing I'm an artist for the first time. And then before it like goes off, it's me dealing with like my imposter syndrome throughout the whole thing, like the ups and downs, whether it was with posing, whether it was with bodybuilding, like I was going through a lot of personal stuff. And so all the sound bites in there are from like actual conversations that like I had remembered. And so the second thing was my friend Jacob, like there was a point where like I wasn't sure like where I fit into the whole posing thing. I think it was after we worked with Kai, because you go work with him, and like I'm bringing routine ideas to him. Like that's like an infant trying to sprint. And so like when I got out of that, I was like what just happened? And like, why do I don't feel very confident in this at all. Like, what is happening? And so
Jacob's like probably one of the best posers of all time.
Jacob's like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And then I was getting ready to go pose like the next two sound bites. It's me and my boyfriend. And it was the first time I was ever going to go just pose in public, because I was trying to get past the like stage fright, like imposter syndrome, all of that stuff. So I started forcing myself to go into certain situations, whether I would just go to the gym by myself and make myself freestyle, or even if I would come up with something and just do it out in the open with people walking around. So I was in Charlotte, like with my phone, with like my speaker, and I was literally just going to go somewhere and start posing to like the song that I'd been posing to. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. And he literally said that's not you. Like that doesn't sound like you. Like, that's not the person you are. Like, you don't tell yourself you can't do things. He was like, you tell yourself you can do something, and then we watch you like claw your way into doing it. And he was like, sometimes it's graceful, sometimes it's not, but like you telling yourself you can't do something, he's like, that's not you. And so that's what like the last two sound bites are before like the music pops off. And then you hear it get quiet. And when you get quiet, that's when he comes in and he says, that's not you. And then the music picks back up when I'm spinning. And then when she says, we'll be free, that's when I like break out into.
Yeah, I remember that bit. That was great.
Yeah. So like that was like the backstory. Like that's so much backstory that was packed into like the first 20 seconds of my routine. But like that was that's the kind of stuff I build my routines on. Like that was what my Olympia one was on. But the guy that I should know the name off the top of my head, but basically like the owner of the Olympia, him and his wife was there at the amateur O.
The owner, you on about? Oh, don't do this to me now. I know his name because he's the guy that owns Wings of Strength. Isn't he?
Oh, it's gonna bother me.
The guy that owns Wings of Strength. And he bought the Olympia, didn't he? Fuck,
Jake Wood.
Jake Woods. Of course it is.
Jake Wood. So we were walking out and I didn't connect the dots. Like I saw Jake Wood and then there was this other woman and this woman came up to me when we were leaving. Like the amateur Olympia was over. Like we were going to go get food or whatever. And this woman comes up to me and was like, I really loved your routine. She was like, it was very inspirational. That was Jake Wood's wife.
That's cool. And it's cool actually that Jake was there at the amateur Olympias as well. That's cool, you know?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So like she said that, I was just like, well, thank you. Like I really appreciate that. And then when I walked away, my coach went up to me and he was like, do you realize who that was? Like, no. Like, you know Jake Wood? And I was like, yeah. He was like, that's his wife. I was like,
oh shit.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty cool. That reminds me of I think it was 2002 Kevin Levrone Olympia routine, and he's posing in front of Joe Weider when Joe Weider still owned it, and Betty Weider's in the front row, and you can see Betty Weider's eyes just like at Kevin Levrone. One of my favorite posing routines of all time. That.
So I don't want to go too crazy long. I know we had picked out a couple other videos, but I think what I might do is I might just have you back on and we might dig more into like the creative side and then talk about your guest posing routine that you did.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that will fit in really well with what we were talking about is like finding ways to have like that creative side into it without it turning into something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really good example.
It was hard to do on that one, obviously, for obvious reasons, but
yeah. But so I think what I'll do is have you come back on so we can talk about that. And then when we can pull it up and do kind of like pause it as we go. So you can kind of like explain it as we're going along, kind of like your thought process, and then I can pause as we play it.
Yeah, I like that idea. Sounds like a good idea.
A couple questions that I think that I wanted to ask is what with this podcast, like I'm trying to build community, and then even with just collaborating and stuff in the future, I've got a couple different places, and out where you're at, it's one of them to like collaborate with some of you guys and come up with like some cool projects. And my question for you is like, what would you like to see more of from a collaborative aspect or like community building within like the posing art?
I feel like we need to start going back to the grassroots of the game. You know, I feel like with posing, it is starting to slowly start drifting off into this sort of like crazy sub thing because of so much struggle for the next
best thing.
Yeah. And what we don't realize is there's so much that can still be done with what we've got, you know. So I think from a collaborative effort, I would like to see some throwback stuff, like going back to like the real old school classical music, slow, powerful posing, taking time to hit the shots, and really creating something beautiful, you know, with like a nice crescendo. I like that, the old school kind of, you know, that there's a black and white video of me posing um, on my Instagram, and it's one of my favorite reels. It didn't really do very well, but I like it because it's very slow. It's very well thought out. It's got some nice transitions in it, and it just flows really well. And it's very like, to me, early essence of bodybuilding. So yeah, I'd like to see that from a collaborative effort. I'd like to see that. You know, me and John talk about all the time about doing a two-piece on stage, where essentially like one of us comes on, runs through some stuff, the music sort of stops, the other one comes on, and then we both move in synergy.
Mm-hmm.
We may be able to do that this year.
That would be cool.
Who knows? But I've already got a song picked out if we do manage to do it. If we do manage to get like booked in for it, because I've been asked, but it just depends on whether we get the collab thing signed off on and all of that. So that would be pretty cool. But yeah, I would like to see something kind of like that, something more sort of like a throwback, and not necessarily like, okay, what's the craziest thing we can do here to get attention? More just what's the most well thought out, methodical posing thing that we can do, you know? So
Making notes.
yeah, I think that would be cool.
And then I guess I got two more small questions. One of them, which I think this would actually kind of help, but what do you feel like would help bring posing more to the forefront of bodybuilding rather than the typical like influencer just
The pose flows.
yeah.
You don't realize how much the pose flows frustrate me.
Why is that?
Because it's an easy grab at likes and follows, and I see straight through it. I follow a lot of people that do it. My friend John's my best mate, and I feel like John was one of the original guys to start pose flowing. So I follow a lot of people, and I like a lot of people that do it, and I understand why they do it, but I will never do it because, to me, I will put out what I like to put out. And if it resonates with someone, then that's awesome. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to force it with what's trending. So yeah, I've sort of like divulged off the question. What was the actual original question? So it was like
it was what
to
do
bring
you what
posing to the forefront.
yeah.
Posing to the forefront. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Potentially, you know, it's never going to happen. But if we all just actually took it back to putting content out there that is more from within us and less about what's gaining traction, I feel like posing would rise up again, because I do feel like posing's got into that monetary era where a couple of guys have done it for their passion and they started making money off of it and got a little bit of a following, and then other guys now just mimic what they do to then continue to jump on the gravy train, and it's just watering it down. And I don't care if that offends people, but that's just the truth, and the truth hurts sometimes. If it offends you, then it's probably aimed at you. I'm probably exactly right about why you're doing it. So, you know, I get why people do it. I get that everyone's trying to make a living, but if you ask me about posing in general, what I feel like would bring posing back to the forefront again is if people just actually started doing it from their heart again and not thinking of their wallets.
Yeah, I've been trying to find like a way to do that because like
There's
I'll
a
see.
there's a big difference between watching someone pose because they love it and watching someone pose because they're trying to get the next bit of content out. There's a massive difference, and anyone that's watching it will be able to see it straight away. I've even
Yeah.
seen guys that I've followed for ages, really liked all their stuff, and I've watched them make that jump. I've watched them visually. I've watched their content change because they've made that jump, and I'm like, you're kind of trying to sell out a little bit. Stay with us, you know?
Yeah, I've been trying to find a way to like bridge the gap. So like I'm friends with like Jarek and Jacob and Tommy and all of those guys. And then like Jarek and Tommy and them are all kind of associated with Iron Eden. So Jarek's posing challenges, which I feel bad I dropped the ball. I started working on one of his because that's what got me started. Was he would pick a song. Him and I have very different styles of music. So anytime, more times than not, he'll pick a song. I'm like, great. But I still have fun with it. And so I started working on it. I didn't put my posts in time, but I've been trying to find, I don't know, I've been trying to figure out where I fit into all of it. And so it's like, I like just making my routines and posting stuff, but then it's like, I see my friends doing these other things. So then for me, I'm like, well, what if I jump in with what they're doing? And it's not so much of a trying to like grab, but to me, in my perspective, it's like if they're trying to, like if Jarek's trying to do posing challenges to get more people excited about posing, then like I can support that by jumping in when he gives a challenge.
That's
Or
it.
like if I see Killian do a pose flow, maybe take his pose flow, but then put it into a music, like some sort of music that I like rather than the exact one that he did. So then now it's his pose flow, but I'm finding a way to make it work for me. And like, I'm still supporting like the content he's putting out and I'm still having fun with it, but it's trying to find that way to be like, this is what I'm doing. And like my friends are coming on here to support me. So then when I see them pushing their content out, I almost look at it as like their way of trying to keep things simple.
Yeah.
So then it's like to help support that, it's kind of like to jump into that with them and try to promote that. Cause then it's like more people will see that might not have seen before. And so then that gets traffic every which way and we all end up kind of connecting in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just take it back like a couple of years ago when it was really like just about the purity. And then you'd get guys that just love to pose together, linking up and posing. And there was none of that. Because now you're starting to watch a lot of people use literally the same format of the way that they pose. Their reels look the same. They have the same subtitles kicking up on the screen. They've got the same cadence. They use the same trendy songs. They'll use the same tactics of 3 pose flow, 5 pose flow, and it's like I can see why they're doing it. You know, I still follow them because I like what they do and I see their talent. But I feel like from a nostalgia point of view, that's what it is. I'd like to take it back a few years before it became all about that. Because I feel like before we were all chasing likes and views, it was much better because it was just pure. Someone would just throw up some artistic posing that looked great, and you'd just be like, "Fuck, you nailed that. That was awesome." Whereas I can't really get behind something like a 3 pose flow or a 10 pose flow or a 25 pose flow. It's just it will get there. Mark my words. Give it a few months. Someone will do a 25 pose flow. It'll happen. Yeah.
Just use these 25 poses. You now got an endless amount of routines for free.
Try it yourself and tag me in it.
I hope it doesn't come to that, but I'll be here. But I know, like, as soon as it comes out, I'm going to end up with something in the inbox from you being like, well,
I
here
told
it
you.
is. I told you. All right. So then my last question is, any advice that you wish you had as a beginner or you would like to give?
Advice that I had as a beginner. I feel like because I started out so late, I already kind of had a fairly wise head on a new career, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
My bodybuilding, so a lot of my wisdom I learnt from my own life experiences, and then ended up kind of taking my own reins as I was going through. I would say the biggest thing actually that I've learned, because this is one thing that I feel will benefit people that are actually competing. So I've prepped 7 times, done 6 shows and a guest pose. So one thing that if you start competing is it's so much more different posing on stage than it is when you're in the posing room. It's you can do the same posing routine 25 times, 50 times, 100 times. Once you get out on the stage, different floor, audience are there, the heart's going, adrenaline's on, you're depleted as fuck, only feeding up as much as you can.
Yep.
A lot goes into it, and it's very almost out of body experience when you walk out onto a stage. The one thing that I would give to people is try not to focus on anything that you cannot control.
That's a good one.
Because that one quote resonated with me, and I do believe it was why I was able to pull off so many what I would consider faultless performances on stage this year. I'd always get off stage, even though everyone would come over and say, "Oh my god, your routine was amazing." I'd always get off stage and I'd be like, "No, I fucked a bit up," and they'd be like, "Where?" And I'd be like, "That bit, it pissed me off because and they're like, no, it was perfect." And I was like, "You don't see it like I see it. I'm a perfectionist. To me, it wasn't flawless, and I want to do a flawless one. I want it to be perfect." And I feel like a lot of that came from nerves, I remember the first time I ever done a competition, and when I walked up the stairs, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I've never felt my heart hit my rib cage that hard. My heart literally felt like it was punching through my rib cage. I was like, "Am I okay? Did I take too much halotestin?" So yeah, a lot of it was nerves, and I think what happened is just this year, or the year just gone, I was adamant. I was like, this year it's big, because I'll be honest. So this is probably the first that anyone will know of it here. The last year was potentially going to be the last time that I'd ever pose or step on stage again. I was considering retiring because I felt like I didn't have any more goals to aim for after last year. I've since got a new goal and I'm working towards it, but it's going to be a while before I jump back on stage again, because I do feel like I've spent so much time trying to claw back the years that I missed by competing often, that I haven't really given myself enough time to improve physically. And that's ultimately what's hindered my progress. But I've enjoyed all my time on stage. So because I knew that it was going to be, potentially my last year, I wanted to make sure that I really went out with a bang and that everything was flawless. And I would say 99.5, I was there. It still wasn't 100% perfect. But the biggest factor is that when I felt those nerves start to kick in, it was that quote by Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, because I'm a big fan of Stoicism. And he said, be mindful of your thoughts. Do not concern yourself with things that are outside of your control. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, So the only things that I can control is what goes in here, fluid, drink, whatever else you're putting in, and my own surroundings with what's going on. You know, how I interpret the surroundings around me is entirely up to me. So I started telling myself I can't be worried about what someone's sitting in the crowd's going to think. I can't be worried about if the floor's not going to be perfect, or if there's going to be somewhere that's slippery, or I can only control what I can control. So what I would give advice to someone first starting out posing or just competing would be, if you've ticked all the boxes and you've listened to everything your coach says, go out, be yourself, stop worrying about everything else, and just have fun with it and be in that moment. Because you can become so caught up in the pressure that you actually just forget the reason that you're doing it. Very few of us will ever make a big ton of money in this game. So if you're not doing it for the love, then you shouldn't be doing it. And if it's not fun, then something's not right.
I agree. Now, I agree with all that. And it's weird because I feel like the longer and deeper I get into it, it's like the more that I realize it's also the only way that you're going to do well in it.
It is.
Is if you just
Love
enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
you'll get way more from it if you learn to enjoy it. Picture yourself back to the first time you ever walked in a gym, ever picked up some weights, and ever first found out what a pump felt like, and how excited you were just to feel that pump. The first time you ever got a crazy pump, and you're like, "What is this? It's amazing." If you can tap into a little bit of that and keep it going through your whole bodybuilding journey, then you'll always have like a good positive outlook towards everything that you're doing, and let your coach worry about the minutiae details.
yeah, that's why you hire them, so you don't have to even think about it.
Exactly that.
Well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for supporting me and coming back a little bit. And I definitely want to get you back on here so we can like really deep dive. I really want to deep dive into your guest pose because I feel like we were going like right that direction, but I also don't want this to end up being like a 3-hour podcast.
It's easy to get segued when you're on these and you just end up chatting. It's done it many times. But yeah, I get you. Just edit me down if you have to. Take some shit out.
I'll just start making some put some stuff for like blooper reels.
Yeah, he was taking well too long on that bit. You have to remember,
outtakes.
I'm getting old, so I've got this. I'm starting to ramble.
Well, for anybody that's on here watching, where can they find you?
Essex in England. It's usually where I hang out. Other than that, you can see me on Instagram, Flow by Sammy. And yeah, that is it. I don't have any other social media.
Okay.
I'm old school, so I can't do two things at once. Instagram's where it's at. I'll probably stay there. I'm not going to jump on the TikTok vibe. Sorry.
Yeah. I've tried it. It doesn't work. I don't like social media enough to keep trying to do both.
One's enough. It's a real struggle just to keep up my Instagram. When I'm busy, it's hectic, and I can't think about doing anything else but that. That and WhatsApp alone, it takes up too much of my life. So you can find me on Instagram, Flow by Sammy, and that's it. But yeah, and if you're interested in working with me and you like my stuff, you can click the link in my bio on the Instagram and jump in the posing room.
Hey, well, thanks for coming on. I'll put your handle too in the show so that way people can find you as well. They can look down there and catch your handle as well. So
awesome.
But Here we go. This was episode official episode 1. Breaking boundaries.